She insisted I meet her perfect ex and said, "I want you to be more like him." I just smiled and shook his hand. But when I hired him for a job and became his boss, I taught him a few things instead. For the last 6 months of our 3-year relationship, my girlfriend Maya had been haunted by a ghost. The ghost's name was Ethan. He was her ex-boyfriend from college, and according to her, he was the walking, talking definition of a perfect man. It started with little comments. We'd be watching a movie and she'd say, "Ethan loved this director. He was so into film." We'd be at a restaurant and she'd mention, "Ethan always knew the best things to order. He had such a refined palate." It was annoying, but I figured it was a phase. Everyone idealizes the past sometimes, right? I let it slide. That was my first mistake. The comments slowly became more pointed. Ethan was so ambitious. He was always talking about his 5-year plan. This was usually said when I decided to take a weekend off instead of working. Or, Ethan was so good at networking, he could talk to anyone. This was her analysis after I spent most of a loud party talking to people I actually knew. I'm not a loser. I have a good job in commercial real estate development. I'm a director at a major firm. I don't splash it around, but I'm successful. I'm comfortable. But in Maya's eyes, I was starting to feel like I was just not enough. Not flashy enough. Not alpha enough. Not Ethan enough. The final straw came a month ago. She had been pushing for weeks for me to finally meet him. He was back in town, and she insisted that the 3 of us go out to dinner. "You'll love him," she said. "And I think you could learn a lot from him." The sheer disrespect of that statement almost made me see red, but I was curious. I had to see this god among men for myself, so we went. We met at one of those ridiculously overpriced steakhouses downtown. Ethan was exactly what I expected. Perfect teeth, a watch that cost more than my first car, and an ego so big it needed its own chair. He had that slick, corporate look down to a science. He spent the first 10 minutes of dinner talking about a big deal he just closed. He then turned his attention to me. "So, Maya tells me you're in real estate too," he said, like he was a king addressing a humble courtier. "What do you do? Flipping houses? Residential stuff?" "Commercial development," I said, keeping my voice even. "Oh, commercial," he said with a little smirk. "Big leagues. What's your title? Project manager?" "Director," I said. His smirk faltered for a half-second before he recovered. "Director, huh? Good for you. It's a tough field. You gotta be a shark to really make it. You gotta live and breathe it. No days off." He looked at Maya. "Right, babe?" Maya just nodded, looking at him with wide, admiring eyes. She was hanging on his every word. The whole dinner was like that. He'd talk down to me, and she'd back him up. He'd offer me unsolicited advice on my career, and she'd chime in with, "See, that's such a good point. You should listen to him." I barely ate. I just sat there, taking it all in, a strange calm settling over me. It was the kind of calm you feel when a complicated problem suddenly becomes very, very simple. The moment of truth came as we were waiting for the valet. Maya pulled me aside while Ethan was on the phone. Her eyes were sparkling. "Isn't he amazing?" she whispered. "He's just so driven and confident." I just looked at her. I didn't say anything. She took my silence as an invitation to continue. She put her hand on my arm, looked me straight in the eye, and delivered the kill shot. "I want you to be more like him." There it was. The quiet part, said out loud. All the little comments, all the comparisons, all boiled down to that one brutal sentence. I wasn't just being compared to him anymore. I was being told to become him. Something in my brain just clicked. I wasn't hurt. I was calculating. My relationship with Maya, I realized in that instant, was over. It was a dead-end street. But I wasn't going to just walk away. An insult that profound required more than a breakup. It required a lesson. A brutal, comprehensive lesson for both of them. Ethan finished his call and walked over. He stuck out his hand. "Good meeting you, man. Keep hustling." I looked at his hand, then at his smug face. I smiled, a real genuine smile, for the first time all night. And I shook his hand. "You too," I said. It was very educational. Maya beamed, thinking I had finally seen the light. She had no idea. I wasn't just shaking his hand. I was sizing him up. I was identifying his weaknesses. Because in that moment, a plan began to form in my mind. A beautiful, intricate, and absolutely devastating plan. Maya wanted me to be more like Ethan. Fine. But I wasn't going to emulate him. I was going to own him. Update 1. It's been a little over 6 weeks since that disastrous dinner. In that time, I've been the perfect, supportive boyfriend on the surface. Underneath, I've been moving pieces around a chessboard that only I can see. My first move was to find out everything I could about Ethan. He had mentioned he was a senior project manager for a rival development firm. He was good, but he had a reputation for being arrogant and taking credit for his team's work. He was all style, with just enough substance to get by. His resume was impressive, but I knew his type. Allergic to details, overconfident in his own abilities, and always looking for the next big thing to slap his name on. He was a perfect target. My company has been planning a massive new project for over a year. It's a flagship development, a 50-story, mixed-use skyscraper we're calling the Skyview Tower. It's the biggest project our firm has undertaken, and it's my baby. I've been leading the pre-development phase from the beginning. I have final say on everything, including the hiring of the core project team. The week after the dinner, I went to my boss and our head of HR. I told them that for the Skyview Tower, I wanted to create a new, high-level position, lead project executive. It would be a step above a senior PM with a bigger title and a much bigger salary. This person would be the public face of the project's execution, responsible for the day-to-day management, reporting directly to me. I made the compensation package so ridiculously attractive that it would be impossible for an ego-driven guy like Ethan to ignore. It was bait, pure and simple, and I was making it irresistible. My boss loved the idea. HR got to work drafting the job description, which I personally reviewed and tweaked. I made sure it was full of corporate buzzwords like synergy, paradigm shifting, and disruptive innovation. It sounded impressive, but it was also vague enough that a bull artist like Ethan would think he was a perfect fit. The job was posted on all the major industry sites, and just as I'd planned, Maya became my unwitting spy. About 2 weeks later, she was over at my place, scrolling through her phone. "Oh my God," she said, her eyes wide. "Ethan is so excited. He's applying for this incredible job. It's the lead project executive for that new Skyview Tower. He says it's the biggest project in the city. If he gets it, he'll basically be a legend." I had to fight to keep my face neutral. "Wow," I said, feigning ignorance. "That does sound like a big deal." "He says he's perfect for it," she continued, oblivious. "He's a shoo-in. He's already talking about the bonus he's going to get." Perfect. The fish had seen the lure. Now it was time to set the hook. Ethan, of course, got an interview. I recused myself from the process, citing a potential conflict of interest since I knew him socially. I handed the interviews over to my second-in-command, a guy named Mark who has worked with me for 10 years and is loyal as a dog. I met with Mark before the interview. I gave him a very specific set of instructions. "I want you to hire him," I said. "But I want you to make him work for it. Grill him on his failures. Question his numbers. Make him feel like he's in the hot seat. Then at the end, tell him that despite some reservations about his lack of experience with a project of this scale, you're going to take a chance on him. I want him to come out of that interview feeling like he barely squeaked by. I want him to feel grateful, like he owes us." Mark is a smart guy. He understood immediately. "You're not just hiring him," he said with a slow grin. "You're trapping him." "Exactly," I said. The interview happened last week. Maya told me all about it. Ethan came home sweating. He said it was the toughest interview of his life, that the interviewer was a shark who picked apart his whole resume. He was convinced he didn't get it. Then 2 days later, he got the offer. He was ecstatic. He called Maya, screaming with joy. They went out for a celebratory dinner, the same steakhouse we had been to. Maya was over the moon. She came to my place afterward, glowing. "He got the job," she announced. "I told you he was a superstar. I'm so proud of him." I just smiled. "That's great news. You should be." "We should all go out to celebrate together," she said. "Once he gets his first big paycheck." "Absolutely," I said. She thinks her perfect ex-boyfriend just landed his dream job. She thinks he's on his way to becoming a legend. She has no idea he just signed his own professional death warrant. He's a fly, and he's just landed in a web of his own ego. And I'm the spider, patiently waiting in the center. The next phase of the plan is about to begin. Update 2. It's been another month. The trap has been sprung, and the fallout has been even more satisfying than I imagined. Ethan started his new job as lead project executive for the Skyview Tower 3 weeks ago. The first 2 weeks were all onboarding and orientation. He was strutting around the office like he owned the place, introducing himself to everyone, talking loudly on his phone about synergizing deliverables. He was a walking, talking corporate caricature. He had no idea who I was in the company hierarchy. My title is Director of Development, and my office is on a different floor with the other senior executives. Our paths hadn't crossed yet. The big reveal was scheduled for the official project kickoff meeting last Monday. This was a massive, all-hands meeting with the entire project team, the architects, the engineers, and the key stakeholders from our investment partners. About 50 people in a huge boardroom. I had arranged for Ethan to be the second-to-last person to present. He was supposed to give an overview of the project execution plan he had been developing for the past 2 weeks. I knew he'd just rehashed the materials the junior managers had given him. Maya, of course, was bursting with pride. She insisted that we go out for a special dinner Monday night to celebrate Ethan's first big presentation. "It's his official debut," she said. "You have to come. It's so important to him." I agreed, of course. The timing was just perfect. The meeting started. One by one, the department heads gave their presentations. Then it was Ethan's turn. He walked to the front of the room, oozing confidence. He launched into his presentation, full of big promises and empty jargon. He was loving the attention. When he was done, there was some polite applause. Our CEO then stood up. "Thank you, Ethan. An ambitious plan. And now, I'd like to hand it over to the man who will be overseeing this entire project, the man this team ultimately answers to, our Director of Development." And then I stood up and walked to the front of the room. I wish I had a picture of Ethan's face in that moment. The smug confidence just evaporated. It was replaced by a wave of confusion, then dawning horror, then pure, undiluted panic. His mouth was literally hanging open. He looked like a fish that had just been pulled out of the water. I didn't even look at him. I addressed the room. I talked for about 10 minutes about the project's vision, our goals, and my expectations. At the end, I said, "I want to welcome Ethan to the team. He has a big job ahead of him, and he will be reporting directly to me. I expect detailed progress reports on my desk every Monday morning, no exceptions." I then turned and looked directly at him for the first time. I gave him a small, tight smile. "Welcome aboard, Ethan." He could barely choke out a "thank you." The room was dismissed. As people were packing up, I walked over to him. He was just standing there, looking shell-shocked. "Looking forward to working with you," I said, my voice low and friendly. "Big job. Lots of pressure. Don't mess it up." I clapped him on the shoulder, just like he had done to me at the restaurant, and walked out of the room. That evening, I went to the celebratory dinner. When I walked into the restaurant, Maya and Ethan were already there, sitting at a table in stony silence. The mood was tense. Maya looked at me, her face a mask of confusion and anger. "You're his boss?" she whispered as I sat down. "I'm the director of the department he was hired into, yes," I said calmly, picking up my menu. "Small world, huh?" Ethan wouldn't look at me. He just stared at his water glass. "You set him up," she hissed, keeping her voice low. "You did this on purpose." "I'm not sure what you mean," I said, still looking at the menu. "Your superstar ex-boyfriend applied for a job at my company and was hired. He's a big boy. He knew what he was signing up for." I finally looked at her. "Isn't this what you wanted? For me to learn from him?" I thought the best way to do that would be to get a real close look at his work. "So I'm managing him. I'm going to teach him a few things." The rest of the dinner was the most awkward hour of my life. She tried to argue. She accused me of being a manipulative monster. Ethan just sat there, silent and broken. I let her go on, and when she was finished, I just said, "You were the one who was constantly comparing me to him. You were the one who told me to be more like him. You created this situation, Maya. You just don't like the outcome." I paid for the dinner, stood up, and looked at her. "I think it's best if you get your things out of my apartment. We're done." Then I walked out. The relationship is over, but the revenge is just beginning. Firing him would be too easy. No, I'm going to make him live this nightmare. I'm going to grind him down, piece by piece, in the very job he thought was his crowning achievement. He's trapped. He can't quit, not from a job this high profile with this much money. It would be professional suicide. All he can do is show up every day and report to the man his girlfriend told him I should be more like. Final update. It's been 6 months. The Skyview Tower is a massive hole in the ground, and Ethan is a shell of the man he once was. My plan has worked more perfectly than I ever could have dreamed. The lesson I set out to teach has been delivered, and the final grades are in. The first month of Ethan working for me was a slow, methodical dismantling of his ego. I put him in charge of a critical part of the project's early phase, negotiating the contracts with our primary steel supplier. I knew this supplier was notoriously difficult. I also knew that the initial budget I had approved for steel was about 15% lower than the realistic market rate. I had set a trap, and Ethan walked right into it. He went into the negotiations with his usual arrogance. He tried to bully the supplier. He made promises he couldn't keep. The supplier walked away from the table. Ethan came into my office, sweating, to tell me the deal had fallen through. I just sat there looking at him. So the lead project executive, the guy we hired to be a shark, couldn't close a simple supply contract? A contract that is now going to delay the entire project schedule? He started making excuses. They were being unreasonable. Their numbers were insane. I cut him off. No, Ethan, you were unprepared. You went in there with nothing but your ego, and you got played. I had to personally get on the phone with their CEO, a guy I've known for 10 years, to salvage the deal. It's done now. But you failed. Don't fail again. That was the pattern. I gave him tasks I knew he was unequipped to handle. I gave him impossible deadlines. I questioned his judgment in front of his team. I made him rewrite reports over and over, focusing on tiny, insignificant details. I was relentless. I became the boss from hell, using his own words against him. You gotta be a shark to make it in this business, Ethan. No days off, right? He started to unravel. The slick, confident guy from the steakhouse was gone. He was replaced by a tired, stressed-out man who jumped every time my name was mentioned. He was losing weight. He always looked exhausted. Maya, of course, didn't handle the breakup well. After I kicked her out, she apparently moved in with Ethan. I can only imagine what that was like. Her perfect man coming home every night, broken and defeated by the guy she told him to mentor. I heard through the grapevine that their relationship was a disaster. All they did was fight. She blamed him for not standing up to me. He blamed her for putting him in this situation in the first place. The successful, ambitious man she had worshipped was gone, and she was left with the bitter, insecure man I had created. The final act came last week. We had a major review with the board of investors. Ethan was responsible for presenting the project's budget and timeline. I knew for weeks that he was struggling, that his numbers weren't adding up. His team was in a panic, trying to cover for his incompetence. The night before the presentation, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Maya. Please, it said. Go easy on him tomorrow. He's a wreck. You've made your point. I didn't reply. In the board meeting, Ethan stood up to present. He was visibly shaking. He stumbled through his slides. The numbers were a mess. The timeline was full of holes. He was trying to hide the delays and the budget overruns, but it was obvious to everyone in the room that the project was in trouble under his leadership. When he was finished, there was a heavy silence. One of the lead investors turned to me. What is your assessment of this situation? I stood up. I didn't look at Ethan. I looked at the board. My assessment is that we have a failure of leadership at the project executive level. The issues we're seeing are a direct result of incompetence, a lack of attention to detail, and an inability to manage the complexities of a project of this scale. I then presented my own set of slides, a contingency plan I had been working on with my trusted team for the past 2 months. It was a detailed, realistic plan to get the project back on track. It was everything his presentation was not. Clear, confident, and competent. The board was impressed. The lead investor looked at Ethan and just said, "Thank you for your time. I think we're done here." I fired him the next day. Officially, it was for performance reasons, all thoroughly documented. Unofficially, it was the final crushing blow. He left the office with a single box of his things, not even making eye contact with anyone. His reputation in the industry is shot. He failed very publicly on the biggest project in the city. No one will touch him for a senior role for years. I heard that he and Maya broke up the same day he was fired. The fantasy was finally, officially dead. She was left with nothing. No perfect ex-boyfriend, no successful new boyfriend. Just the consequences of her own shallow desires. A few days ago, I was leaving a coffee shop and I saw her. She was walking down the street, looking lost. She saw me, and for a second, I thought she was going to say something, but she just looked away, her face full of shame and regret. My revenge was complete. It wasn't just about getting back at them. It was about showing them the difference between perception and reality. Maya was in love with the idea of a successful man, but she had no idea what real success required. Ethan was in love with his own reflection, but he had no substance behind the shine. I simply held up a mirror and forced them to look. She wanted me to be more like him. In the end, I made him wish he could be more like me, and that is a lesson I don't think either of them will ever forget.